Let's get started.
Have you met the newbie? How does he know so much about everything? It's his first day.
Yeah, he's amazing. He just wrote a blog post for me. It was brilliant.
It was nothing.
So, I need to write a job description for a new role on my team, and we'll need interview questions for the candidates.
Done and done.
Wait, what?
We need to revise taglines and build social posts for the new campaign.
Be right back. Okay, I've dropped some ideas for those in the chat.
Okay.
You should make sure that code doesn't introduce any security risks. Like this.
Boom. Thanks, newbie.
Hey,
Wait, there's more newbies?
Yeah, there's lots of them. And they help us get things done much faster.
Wow, we're ready to launch 3 months ahead of schedule. How's that even possible?
The newbies. Couldn't have done it without them.
Without who?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the August edition of the Forge Dev 10. Some of you might have already seen that video before, but I think I do prefer calling AI agents as newbie or teammates, and I think after the session, you will know why. Today, we are going to talk about building Rovo agents using Forge. If you have never heard of Forge Dev 10, it's a series of Atlassian community events where we showcase capabilities of our developer platform, Forge. Myself, Anmol Agrawal, and I've been in Atlassian for 6 years as developer advocate, where I help developers and partners like yourself to be successful in building apps using our tools. Without further delay, let's get started. Let's see what we have in the agenda for today. We'll start off with fundamentals of Forge. Now, most of you have already heard or worked with Forge. This will be a quick refresher for those who are new to Forge. I'll mention a couple of key concepts which will be helpful in later section. Then we'll get a 101 on AI agents. Now, I know many people are still trying to figure out and understand what are agents and how do they work. So we'll try to understand all of that at a high level. Then we'll go a level deeper to Rovo agents and try to understand what makes them special and why build agents. After that, we'll get into the fun part where I will do some live coding and see the agent in action. And apart from that, we'll also see a couple of more use cases to inspire you. And lastly, I'll share all the resources that you need to get started in your own journey. And then we'll wrap it up with Q&A. Okay, we got miles to cover, so let's begin. So what is Forge? For those who are new here, Forge is a serverless development platform built by Atlassian to extend functionalities of our cloud products like Jira, Confluence, and Bitbucket. So why built on Forge? All the computation, so first reason is all the computation and storage happens on Atlassian infrastructure. That means you don't have to worry at all about provisioning of servers and making sure everything is working properly. Secondly, you get isolated environments and sandbox functions right out of the box. What does that mean? That means your customer's data is safe. Lastly, you get to choose the UI for your app. If you like to build like pre-built components, we have a kit for that. Or if you like to customize in your own way, we have a kit for that too. So in a nutshell, with Forge, you can focus your brainpower more on building solutions and leave the infrastructure management to Atlassian. So what type of apps you can build? Now, you're not limited by these three options, but just to give an idea, you can build integrations which can connect to third-party services, which could be with internal only within your organization, or it could be some external APIs, third-party APIs. Another type of apps that you can build is UI apps. Let's say you want to add some new functionality or extend the Jira Cloud or Confluence product itself by adding new sections or pages. You can build that kind of UI apps too. And every organization has some kind of a workflow, and usually workflow validators are really great and really helpful. So you can build your own custom validators for your workflow. And I think after this session, we'll need to update this slide to add the fourth category, which would be the Rovo agent. Okay, so we'll begin. I'll share a couple of fundamental concepts of Forge, which will be useful in the demo section. So to start off with, we have something called Forge CLI or command line interface. And this is something that is required for you to get started building your Forge apps. And this lets you create, manage, and deploy your Forge apps. Next is something called manifest file. We create the Forge app, there is the YAML file inside the project folder, which has the description of has the structure of the app, and it includes the modules, resources, and permissions that the app utilizes. So you can consider this file as like a recipe to if the app is a dish, then manifest file is the recipe. Then the next concept is something called modules, and modules lets you describes how the Forge app extends and interacts with your cloud products. So in this screenshot, this is something called Jira issue panel. So that means it's adding a new issue panel inside the Jira. And there are many different types of modules. Some of the modules are shared between Atlassian products like Jira, Confluence, and all. It can be used in all of those products, and some are very product specific ones. And we'll get a better idea about manifest file and the modules when we get into the demo section. Now, one of the common modules that we are going to use is called function. And this is where we define the app, the app behavior is defined. So if a user interacts with the app in a certain way, then whatever needs to happen behind the scenes inside the app, the function lets you do that. Now, there are tons of concepts inside Forge. There's modules, there's all the things that's possible like tunneling and profiling and storage, and there's tons of features in Forge. And if you would like to learn more about them on a deeper level, I would recommend you to check out our YouTube channel called Atlassian Developer. And you will find past episodes from the Forge Dev Den, training videos, and our teams have been constantly pushing out new content, sharing capabilities of our platform. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel to stay up to date. All right, let's get an introduction to the agents. Now, I tried to look for the definition of agents, and I came across this one, which sums it up pretty nicely. So here it says that agent is an autonomous entity within a software system that interacts with its environment to achieve a specific goal. So there are three components that together make up an agent. There's autonomous entity part, interaction with the environment part, and achieving a specific goal. So let's try to understand like how all these are tied together with an example. Imagine you walk into a library and that has a helpful robot named Libby. And Libby is designed to assist you with various tasks related to providing information and finding books in the library. Now, let's say I walk into this library and I ask Libby to help me find books on Titanic. Now, let's say Libby is capable of a couple of actions. One action could be information lookup action. So let's say if I would have asked Libby to tell me more about Titanic, maybe it would probably select this action, and using some kind of logic behind the scene, it could return me the response for that. But in this case, I asked, can it help me find the book on Titanic in the library? So let's say Libby is capable of another action called location finder, and probably it would select this action for my request. So using this example, let's try to understand how agents work. So there are four components in an agent. So first is that user provides inputs. So either you can type it out to an agent. If you have worked with GPT, you know that. In this example, I asked Libby for the book. Or sometimes even agent doesn't require an input specifically if, let's say, it's designed to automatically pull in the data. That also counts. But the bottom line is that the agent gets inputs in some way. The second component of agent is the agent logic. Now, agent analyzes the input it has been given, and from all the actions that it can perform, it would try to select the appropriate action for the user query. So in the example that I mentioned, that I asked for the location of a book, and it would probably select the second action, which was location finder, for this particular query. Now, the third component would be that it gathers uh, gathers necessary data from knowledge base, and the knowledge base could be from APIs, database, third-party services, anything. Now, in this case, let's imagine that Libby has access to a database where it has list of the books, its location in the library. So it would probably try to do some search there. And lastly, the LLM integration or large language model. And what this integrate step does is, after it has got the necessary data from the knowledge base, and it has got the user input from the first and the second step, it tries to bring it all together and perform the action or generate the response that's needed. So in this case, in the example, I asked for information about the location of the book. So it will probably generate a response. But let's say Libby is capable of retrieving the books for me. And if I had asked to retrieve book for me, and it could perform that action too. So all these four things at a high level makes AI agents possible. All right, now that we have understood how AI agents work, now we are going to go one layer deeper to learn about Rovo agents and what makes them special. So the idea of Rovo agents is that they become AI teammates, which are configurable as per individuals or teams' needs and fit well into our workflows. These agents excel at handling complex multi-stage tasks that require ongoing interaction. They can adapt to user input, collaborate on projects, and maintain engagement throughout the processes. AI agents are ideal for automating routine, uh, time-consuming tasks with clear guidelines. Now, this kind of automation frees up humans to focus more on creative, strategic, and high-value activities. They are capable of continuously improving their performance as they can refine their outputs based on user feedbacks, new data, leading to increasingly accurate and relevant results over time. Lastly, these agents can function autonomously, carrying out assigned tasks and making decisions within their programmed scope. They effectively take on specific roles in a system, operating independently to achieve predefined objectives. Now, what we're going to talk about is we would like to compare agents with some of the alternatives within Atlassian. So to start off with, um, if you have tried out Atlassian Intelligence, let's try to compare how the Atlassian Intelligence or AI features are different from agents. So to start, if you have used Atlassian Intelligence, you might have used it to summarize or rewrite or improve the writing of the work that you're doing. So AI features, they in a given context, they do repetitive tasks. So just for examples, they are good at summarizing, and they take their interaction is a bit restricted in a way that it takes a single input and it spits out a single output. And after whatever output you get, you may have very limited follow-up options. And the next comparison that we are going to do is of the agents with the automations. So if you have tried out automation for Jira, or if you're aware of the concept of triggered automation or scheduled automations, that also works. So with automations, they operate based on predefined rules with a specific tasks in a very specific order. So because of their rigid structure, they don't have the ability to learn or adapt as agents do. Now, automations are great for doing very repetitive tasks where there is a requirement for consistency and precision. And what makes agents unique is that they are designed for collaborating with humans, and they can take various roles and actions. We'll see this part in the demo, that how to give roles and actions to the agent. Then they also can make decisions autonomously. You just give it a goal, and you don't even have to provide detailed instructions. And agents are great at reasoning from the information that's provided, reasoning what actions need to be performed. And agents are great at doing that. And lastly, agents are also capable of learning and adapting from the new knowledge. It has access to new data and the user feedback, as previously mentioned. Now, as you will be in your journey of building agents, you might ask yourself at some point, why not have an agent that can do it all? But one agent to rule them all approach carries significant risks. So first is, let's say this super agent fails to perform a task. Now this creates a bad user experience for the customer, which in turn can make them lose trust in our tool. That's why it's better to have a diverse set of agents to mitigate risks, biases, and failures. Secondly, having a separate agent is just like pulling in a colleague in the real world. They might be an expert on a specific domain, and this mirrors the workplace dynamics, which is more intuitive. And lastly, specialized agents with narrow scopes tend to produce higher quality and more specific results. So this multi-agent approach enhances reliability, user comfort, and overall performance in AI systems. Now let's take a look at a couple of ways that you can interact with Rovo agents inside the product. So in this screenshot, you can see in the sidebar, there's a chat window. We call this Rovo chat. And here you can ask any query that the agent is capable of, and you would see a response something like this. Another way of working within the chat is, let's say you want the agent is capable of taking different actions depending on the context. So in this case, we have this Confluence page, and if you want to get some information from this Confluence page and perform some action, that's another great way of interacting with RoboChat. Another way of interacting with Rovo agents is to let's say you are working on a page and you want to, while editing, you want to transform or generate a content. That straight in editing experience is also available across products. So agents can be controlled manually. Manually means you ask a question or provide an input. They can also be controlled by event-based triggers or product triggers. So what this means is, let's say, if an issue is created and you want agent to do certain actions, that is an example of a product trigger. And the agents can also be controlled by schedule triggers or time-based triggers. Let's say you want agents to perform certain actions on a recurring basis. That would be an example for the third one. So our vision is that Rovo agents become part of your team and daily workflow, and hence appear in the same place as your teammates. All right, with that, let's get on to the fun part, which I think all of you have been waiting for. Let's get into the demos. I'm going to jump into the terminal. All right, before I start coding, I would like to explain the flow that I'll be going through. So what I'm going to do is create the app first, and I'm going to explain what I'm trying to build the app for. Then we'll deploy the app to the cloud instance and see the agent in action. And once we have seen it in action, then we'll walk through the code to understand what's happening. All good? And just a gentle reminder, if during this whole presentation, if you have any questions on any slides or anywhere, please feel free to drop it in the Zoom chat, and one of my teammates should be able to respond to you. We have developer advocates, we have product managers and engineers from the team that has made all the products that I'm showing here. Cool. All right, let's get started. So first thing I'm going to do is check out the version of the Forge CLI that I have it installed. So I'm going to Forge direct version. And as of today, we have 10.4.1 version available. Okay. Now let's try to create the app. And for that, we are going to type out Forge create command. So the first thing that it asks is the name of the app. So the use case that I'm going to tackle is, let's say the support team usually in their queue, they get issues of variety of categories. It could be, the issues could be related to the API, billing, feature request, or many types. And within one queue, let's say somebody from the engineering team, they want to investigate or analyze the issues in the queue, which are of the category, let's say API related issues they want to analyze. And they want to analyze how many issues have they got recently, are there any trends or patterns, or what are the most commonly raised issues recently. So we are going to do that. We are going to build an agent for that. So for that, we are going to name this app as, let's say, analyst. So next up, it asks us to select a category, and you can see an option called Rovo agent and action, which is currently in EAP. So since we are in EAP, it's possible some of the things may change based on the feedback that we get from all of you when you since this Rovo is still in EAP and until it goes GA. So let's click that. Now there are a couple of templates that are available here. One is action and another is Rovo agent. Now I'm going to explain what those are, but for now, let's select action. And Rovo agent and action are actually two of the Forge modules Rovo Forge modules that's available to you. So for this use case, we are going to select action and we are going to understand how it all works. So once we select the template, now app is being created. So if you have already done this before, this might look familiar. First, it downloads the template. Then it registers the app, which means it gives a unique app ID. Then it also creates different versions of the app for different environments, which is development, staging, and production. And it also installs the dependencies needed for this app. So let's open up this project. We'll go into that folder and try to open it up in the code editor. All right. Now we are going to take a look at two files. One is the manifest file, which I mentioned in the first section of this presentation. And second one is this index file. Now you can see a bunch of code here, which comes right out of the box. And I would recommend you to try this agent out by yourself later on to see what's capable of. But for now, for this example, what I'm going to do is using some copy paste magic. I'm going to modify the code and let's see the agent in action first. So what I'm going to do is I have some code handy for the manifest file here. So I'll paste this, and don't worry, I'll give a walkthrough of the code, what's happening here. And for the index file, okay. So we have modified both of these files. Let's try to deploy the app first. So what I'm going to do is forge deploy. Make sure the app details in the okay. Your app could not be found, it's saying. Just a second. I think there might be some problem in this. Just a second. So what I'm going to do is copy. I think there might be some issue with this app ID. Just a second.
Emma, you might just go forge register. Just
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that too. Thank you so much, Dual. Forge register. Let's give it a different name, just so that doesn't conflict. All right. So what Forge register does is give us a new app ID. And let's try deploying the app again. All right. This time it works. Thank you, Dual. So as you can see here in the logs, it's doing some multiple steps. One is it start off with running ForgeLint, which validates that all the code in the project is in the correct format. Then what it's trying to do now is packaging up all this code and trying to upload it in the cloud. And it's at the same time, it's also validating the manifest file, creating a copy of the functions, and creating a snapshot of the functions, and also deploying it to the environment, which by default is in development. So now the app is deployed. What we are going to do is install it in our cloud instance. So for that, I'm going to type out the command forge install. And in this case, I'm going to select the product Jira, because we are building this agent for Jira specifically. And then it asks me to enter the site URL. So in this case, I'm going to enter the URL, which is in the form of domain.atlassian.net. And in this app, we are trying to get the issues by making a get issue API call. And to make the API call, you need to specify, you need to give the permission scopes in the app. And since we have done that, it's trying to make sure that we want to continue, which is yes in this case. Now the app is being installed on a cloud instance. Meanwhile, let me try to open up. All right. Okay. So now it says installation complete. Now what I'm going to do is start the tunneling, which is the connection of the agent in the cloud instance to my local code. So it creates a bridge, and this is great for development to check out the logs and debugging. And I can do that using the command forge tunnel. Okay, so now it's listening for request. What we are going to do is do a quick refresh. And right now, because we have identified some bugs, and this agent currently is not operational from if I'm, let's say, in the queue page. So what I'm going to do is just go into one of the issues, and those are the bunch of issues I have created with different types related to API, billing, and feature request. And let's try out the agent. And the way to do that is at the top right. If you have access to Rovo, you will see this link called chat, which is the Rovo chat. And the way to select the agent that we have just built is if you click on this and go into browse agents. And here we will now see the agent that we have just created, which is called Jira Analyst. And you can see there's a description saying that this agent can analyze Jira issues. So let's select that. Now, let me zoom in a little bit just to make it clear. All right, it's visible. All right. So now here you can see there is this action called analyze Jira issues, and this is one of the quick ways to get started. This is something called conversation starters. We'll get more into that in a second, but let's click that. Now the agent analyzed the inputs, and it's asking me that before we proceed, do you have any specific labels you would like to filter the issue by? If not, I will analyze all the issues in the project. So because there's not a lot of issues, let's say all issues. So just keep in mind there's some things like you see here, invoking action get issues. This will come in handy later on. All right, let's try to analyze the response that we have got from this agent. So it started off with giving us the main findings, saying that, okay, there are total 30 issues that it has analyzed. The common themes are API issues, billing, feature request, and others. It has given me this nice table with division of like the category, how many issues are of each type, and how many of those issues are like the percentage of the total number of issues. After that, it has given us a little bit more detailed explanation of each category. And it has also identified patterns, trends and patterns, like what are the common themes between certain category of the issues. It has also given us some additional insights, which is great, and also given us recommendations on what can be done to tackle these issues so as to uh, reduce or avoid it in the future. And there's one more functionality I can do here, which is analyze the issues, but by labels, because my issues are labeled. So I'll do that by saying, analyze the issues with label, let's say billing. So now it did the same analysis, but only within the scope of issues labeled billing. So you can see there's like different type of categories now. There's within the billings, there are issues which has some are like related to overcharges, failed transaction, missed invoices, refunds, and all. So that's the demo of how the agents could look like in action. Now let's jump into the code and try to understand what's happening and how this is all working. I'm going to minimize these logs for a second, but we'll come back to it. So we'll start off with the manifest file. And here we have defined the modules. The first module that we have used is something called Rovo Agent. Now, Rovo Agent lets you build agents, but also leverage the functionalities of Atlassian Rovo product itself. So to this agent, if you have worked with Forge modules before, we'll first of all give a unique identifier to the agent in this using the key. And in this case, we have called it analyst agent. And we are also going to provide the name and the description. So if you remember, when we clicked browse agents and we selected the agent, so the name and the description that was visible here is coming from this place. The next value that we define is the main part of this whole app. It's the prompt. Now we have a page in our documentation on how to create effective prompts, but I'll give a run through of what creates a good prompt. So I'll start off with saying that you are an experienced data analyst who has specialized in analyzing Jira issues. So this is like giving a role to the agent. Now, after that, I have mentioned like some of the jobs that this agent can perform. So in this case, I have given it just one, which is analyze list of Jira issues. Then we provide instructions for the agent to perform for each of those jobs. And we do that by by explicitly mentioning like what are the steps that needs to be performed. So we start off by we tell the agent to check if the project key is available in the context. I'll jump into the index files code in a second, and that's where it pulls in the project key data from the context. If not, then it can ask the user to provide the project key explicitly. Now I've mentioned that label as an optional. It's not needed for every action. And that's why I've explicitly mentioned that check if the user has provided any labels. Once we have the inputs, then we tell agent to fetch the issues using the get issues action. Now where this get issues action is coming from, I'll explain in a second. It's at the bottom. But let's say if there are no issues that's returned from the result, the way the logic that I'm going to just explain in a second, then I'm telling it to skip the next steps and just return the message that for this project key and label, there was no issue returned. Actually, I would like to encourage you to experiment with this. If you, let's say, while building your app, let's say you skip this line, I would like you to see the response it generates, because otherwise it generates the whole response with not available or blank values. And that's why this line has been added. Then the third step, this is the main one. I'm telling how to analyze the issues, like the response that that you just saw, the format. There was a summary and a table and explanations and trends and patterns, the insights and the recommendations. All of that has been mentioned here. And the table was mentioned in this way. I have mentioned here that table should have columns, category, count, percentage, and percentage of total. Another important part of this prompt, of any kind of agent prompt, is providing guardrails. And here I have provided a couple of guardrails saying that follow these rules. One is mention the common theme between the issue of certain type. And second is do not mention specific issue details, which is, let's say, issue key and summary, unless asked by the user. And here I will also recommend that maybe try to skip these guardrails and try to see the response. And lastly, whatever the response is generated by the agent, we are asking it to return the analysis to the user. Now, if you remember when I interacted with the agent, I clicked an action called Analyze Jira Issues. And this is something called conversation starters. And conversation starters, it's great for, you can say, most asked questions or most common queries or most performed actions. And using that, it's a great starting point for anybody with your agent. And the next property you see is something called actions. And here I have given it a value, get issues, which corresponds to the action, which has the same key as this. So I'm linking this agent. I've created an action, which I'm going to explain in a second what it is, and created an action and linked it to the agent. Next up is the action module. This is the second Forge Rovo module that we have. And it lets you perform, it lets you call functions in your code. So let's try to understand that better. So we are saying that this get issues function will call, will trigger a function called get issues function, which is defined below. Now it's important to give a very clear and description to these actions. So in this case, it's saying that this action is responsible for fetching issues from a project. And this is important because all this agent and agent prompt and the data actions that we have provided, all these get converted and passed into the large language model all at once. And the clearer the information is, the better the quality of response would be. Now, this action can accept inputs. So in this case, if you remember from my demo, I've provided labels. So I've for this action to happen, to execute, I've mentioned that this action can accept an input called label. And then I've provided some more information about this input, that would be a string data type. And this input is used to filter the issues. And I've also mentioned that it's not a required input. And lastly, I've also mentioned something called action verb, which lets you define that what kind of action what kind of operation this action performs. So in this case, it's making a get request or get issues. And there are very fixed number of values that can be given to the action verb, and get is one of them. For more values, you can check out our documentation. Now, why this action verb is needed is, let's say you want to perform an action to, let's say, update a value or delete a value. Because that is a more, you can say, heavy operation, like more crucial operation, you would want to get confirmation from the user before the agent performs that action on your behalf. We have a product manager, Adam Moore, somewhere in the chat hanging around. You can ask him more about it. Otherwise, I think at the end, I'll let him speak on this if anybody's interested. Now, this action has this function value called getIssues function. And if you have worked with a Forge app before and know how to use function module, this will look familiar. So this function, in turn, is handled by getIssues function inside the index folder. And we'll take a look at this function in a second. And lastly, because one of the things that's happening with this agent is trying to get the issues, and to make a getIssue API call, you need to define the permission, the permissions and the scopes. And in this case, we have added read Jira work permission for that. Now let's take a look at the index file. And this is actually pretty simple. There's just one action called getIssues. And before that, we have imported API and route methods from the Forge API package. And what this function does is, okay, before going ahead, in this function, you have access to a couple of variables called payload and request context. So let me open up the logs and you'll be able to see what this payload and request context gives you. So here's the payload. And inside the payload, you can see there is context data. And inside that, there is some data related to the context where the agents started performing the action. So you can see there's the URL of the issue page where we started the agent from. There's the issue key, there's issue ID, issue type, there's the project key, and this is the context. And this is where we are getting the context value that is passed on to the agent that when we defined in the prompt. And in the request context, it mentions the context from where the request is coming from. And this one has information like account ID and from which cloud instance this request came from. So that's what the install context is. Now, the first time when I triggered the action, it only got the project key and I didn't define the label. And in the second case, you can see fetching issues from project key and label billing. So if we jump into the code, the first thing that we do is extract the project key and the label from the payload variables. And from that, what I'm doing is constructing a JQL expression, Jira Query Language expression. This is more like a hard-coded way. If the label is present, then it creates this expression. If not, then only use the project key. And once we have the JQL expression ready, we make the API call using api.asApp and then request Jira method. And after that, we have mentioned the route. So if you check out the documentation to make a search API call by passing on the JQL, it's done by /REST API /search and passing on the JQL parameter, JQL expression as a parameter. And once we get the response, what I have done is define this function called extract issue details, because the response has tons of data and we don't need all of them. But for this use case, I have only asked for the issue key and the summary. And just because of the issue key and summary, it was able to do all that analysis. Now you can imagine if you add more details here, like creation date, resolution date, issue type, and whatnot. And let's say you extract all those details and try to, in some way, construct the JQL, and then ask the questions in the agent. You basically expand the capability of the agent. And whatever the response that's generated, it would be a JSON response of the list of issues, each with the issue key and the summary. It's passed back to the agent in the prompt, and it starts doing the operations and it generates a response. So in this, that's pretty much sums up how this agent works. Okay, let's jump back to the presentation. Okay, I had this video recorded in case AI hallucinated, because it happens. But fortunately, in this case, there was no requirement. So let's move ahead. Okay, I'm going to share now a couple of use cases of what other kind of agents you can build, and I hope this gives you an inspiration, kind of like what's possible with Rovo agents. So let's take a look at a couple more of them. So one of my teammates created this agent for Confluence, and let's say, and this is a working app. This is not a mock-up. So let's say there's a sales team and they want to get some notes on the customers before or after the meeting. And let's see the agent in action, how it could assess the customer in their workflow. So it begins by us preparing brief notes for an organization. Now agent is using some logic, tries to pull in all the information, and it generates a response. Now they are asking for past engagements and adding the key highlights to this page. Next, they have asked for the org structure. Okay, now they have called out any callouts for specifically for this organization. And as you can see, you can transfer the conversation from within the in-editor experience to the Rovo chat and back and forth. So in this example, you saw, like, using some agent logic underneath, how quick it was to fetch the information and get the page ready within no time. In the next use case, we have Adam Moore, who is the product manager, him and his team is making all Rovo Forge possible. And he gives us a demo about how agents can work well along with automation. Although I talked about how automation are different from agent, but at times they can be used together, which in a complementary way. So let's hear him.
Hey team, this is a quick demo of how Rovo agents and those built on Forge are going to be able to be used in automation rules to get your agents working sort of autonomously behind the scenes for you, rather than having to invoke them via the chat UI or elsewhere. So this is Confluence automation. I've set up a quick rule here that gets triggered when the GIF label is added to a page. It is then going to invoke my agent, which I built on Forge, called GIF Helper, and it can do two things. It can read the content of a Confluence page and it can call the Giphy API to fetch GIFs. And so the cool thing about agents in automation is that customers are going to be able to give an extra prompt to guide the agent how to work in this particular circumstance. And so I want this agent to read the page with the page ID from the automation smart values. I want you to extract some search terms that can be used to find GIFs to decorate the page and make it more engaging. And then I want you to generate a GIF using those words as the search term, and I want a response that looks something like this. Because in the next step, I am going to use that agent response smart value as the body of the comment that I'm going to add to the page. And then just for fun and by way of comparison, I'm going to call the agent again. This time use the page title as the search term and only return the URL as the response. So no additional messages, because I want to put the response in the link field here and create a smart link, which is going to sit in the content tree. So let's have a look at how that works in practice. I come to my Confluence page and I add a label. I'm going to jump over to have a look at my Forge tunnel. So it's retrieving the page content for that particular page. It's finding GIFs for Mario, so the LLMs decided Mario is a good word to use for finding GIFs for this page, and then the history of Nintendo using the title as well. So we come back, of course we refresh the page. And we'll see a new comment here. So search for Mario, and we got Mario dancing, which is pretty good. And in the smart link below, I've got this kind of weird GIF from history of Nintendo. So yeah, a bit of a silly example, but hopefully that shows how you can leverage the LLM in the rules to sort of get a better outcome by sort of parsing the context rather than just deterministically searching for something like page title. And yeah, hopefully you can think of some cool use cases.
Awesome. And in the last one, this is the last use case. This is just a mock-up, but you can imagine, let's say, if somebody has created a ticket, in this case, somebody has asked for a social media post for Instagram campaign, and let's say you want, based on the inputs that's provided by the user, you want agent to come up, generate ideas, or do some basic tasks to get started with, which could help either the user who raised the request or the agent who is going to handle the request. You can the agent can proactively take actions. So let's say there's an agent here, and it can generate and give you some extra ideas to start off with. All right, that almost brings us to the end of this presentation. Now, to help you get started with your own journey of building Rovo agents, you can check it out at this link, which is go.atlassian.com/rovo-dev-10. And this this will direct you to a community thread, the developer community thread, which has a list of sample apps, tutorials, and guides, which are a great starting point for you. And our content will continue to grow over next few months at least, and beyond. So do keep an eye out on the those links mentioned in the page. All right, with that, we are excited to see all the agents that you guys build. And if you guys whatever you guys build, if it's awesome, please do share with us, either through developer community thread, through LinkedIn, or other channels. Our team are always keeping a lookout for that. With that, thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you, Anmol. Very nice presentation. I'd like to thank Dougal and Adam as well for being busy answering all the questions in the chat. I believe Adam answered most, if not all. But if we missed on something, I know we're 2 minutes past the scheduled time, but maybe we can take up a couple of questions from the crowd if in case we missed something. Anyone has more questions for Anmo and the team?
Just stop sharing first. I'll just keep it here. Okay.
Okay, Frank said there is a question in the Q&A. Just read it out
See if I
loud.
can check
Can
it
you check it,
out.
Anmo? Yeah, in the Q&A. So the question is, are there plans to raise the automation execution amounts when using Rovo automation agents?
I think this would be question for Adam.
Yeah. Although, yeah, I'm not too sure what the automation team's plans are there. So, yeah, I'm not aware of any increase, but I can follow that one up.
Adam, did you all answer all the questions? Then didn't leave anything for me? Ah, nice.
Well, yeah, there are some more coming in. How about follow-up prompt option in the manifest? From Christian.
Sorry, what's the question?
Christian, can if you don't mind, can you ask the question live about so you posted about follow-up prompt option in the manifest? Can you? Is Christian still here?
I saw documentation. There is an option follow-up prompt in manifest. It wasn't mentioned in this demo.
Follow prompt.
I can answer that if you want.
I just wondering
But
if it even working, or is it something old from previous early access?
No, it's
yeah,
there and it's working. I think it's just my own usage. It can be a little bit hit and miss. So it's something we're still sort of working on, but certainly keen to get anyone's feedback who's in the EAP and playing with it for things that work and things that don't.
Thanks. I hope that answers the question. Okay, I think there are some more questions coming in. Unfortunately, it's 5 minutes way past the time, so I think it's a good place to stop and thank everyone for attending.
actually,
if you're
sorry, and just
Yep.
one question. This is a good one. Like, where
Okay,
can
go
we
on.
submit feedback while in the EAP? Adam, I think you would know the better place for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just on either the Slack channel or the community forum, which you'll get the links to when we accept the EAP application. So either place is fine.
Okay, thanks. So before we go, I'm gonna post the link again that's currently flashed. So if it's easier for you to click a link, it's in the chat window. Again, thanks everyone for the Australia folks. Thanks for staying up late. I know it's dinner time already. Appreciate the time, and thank you everyone for attending and for a very interactive session. Hope to see you on the next one. So expect the video recording to come out sometime next week. Okay, thanks, and have a nice day, everyone. Thanks, Admiral.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.